that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder how gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 449th edition of Energy Week with George Harvey and the amazing Tom Fennell.
Time goes fast when you're having fun.
It sure does. That's right. Tom is actually here in the flesh, in case you didn't know.
Forgot to say that.
Oh, man. Okay, when we try to be funny, we aren't. When we don't try to be funny, we are. That's what happens when you get old. All right. Every day I go to the internet and I find whatever I can about energy and climate change, put it at my blog, geoharvey.com, which you can reference in regard to all the things we're going to be talking about. And every week, Tom and I get together, usually on Thursdays. It happens that this week we're doing this on a Friday. There was a delay, which is absolutely understandable. The week that we're going to be doing starts, I didn't get my notes.
Starts on a Thursday.
Starts on a Thursday, the 9th of December. And my golly, my notes are just completely screwed up here because it says Thursday, November, and it doesn't say the date. And I'll bet yours do too.
Well, it did. I took the November off.
Wise. Anyway, I you know, this is what happens when you get old. You go crazy, and that's the end of you. The material that we're doing, excuse me, starts on Thursday, the 9th of December, and it goes up until Wednesday, the 15th of December. And I'm going to try very hard to keep that all straight as we're going because my notes have got it crooked.
Well, as we go through these things, I've read them all, obviously, and commented on them. There's some of the things that I think are very well worth looking up. Some of these are excellent articles.
Yeah.
I'll try to mention that.
Yeah, good idea. So we're starting, as I said, on that note.
We got
and you can go to the site that you're watching this on, whether it's YouTube or whatever. You're going to be able to find the download for the file that Tom and I are using, or you can go to the site that we use, which is the source of the file.
So that's Mount Semeru
before
it blew its top.
Yeah, this is a funny thing. I can't quite figure out exactly what this is a picture of, and I should have got a better picture for this.
That's a mountain in Indonesia.
It is. I think Mount Semeru is the one on the right side in the background.
Okay.
And this
the one with the flat top is not it?
No, I don't think so. It's smoking away, though. Anyway.
Well, the bottom line is, and you're just going to say this one, this is the bottom line in this article.
Yeah. CNN.
Heavy rain triggered Indonesia's volcano eruption. This could happen more often.
Yeah. Indonesians are used to dealing with natural disasters, but Mount Semeru's eruption on the island of Java was different. Days of heavy rain and had gradually eroded its lava dome, which acts like a plug. Scientists say the rain and the eruption are connected. And
I would think so.
And the trick here is we're going into a period of more heavy rain.
Yes.
So they're saying that this kind of thing can happen more in the future.
This
However,
is a good article. There's 25 photos if you like photos. And it says more than 30 people were killed in the eruption.
Yeah.
And dozens more are missing as of the time they wrote this.
Wow. Well,
thousands of buildings were damaged, and we're going to visit that.
Yes.
Okay, and many buried under heavy piles of ash that shrouded entire villages. This was pretty serious.
This was serious, but one thing about this is the fact that you had the eruption was not the result of the rain. The fact that you had the eruption when you did was the result, because that eruption was going to come sooner or later.
It would have happened anyhow, but there was a plug in that volcano.
Yeah.
And the rain loosened the plug, and whoosh.
And whoosh.
Saturday's blowout created what's known as pyroclastic flows,
Yes.
which are hot clouds of lava, gas, and ash, up to, you ready for this one? 1,000 degrees Celsius. That's pretty
glows.
hot.
That's pretty hot. Yeah.
They move fast, up to 60 miles an hour, and can be impossible to run from.
Yeah. That's what
You
killed
see
the-
one of these things coming, stay there, because you ain't going to run
well-
away from it.
Yeah. People were out in boats at Vesuvius and died because of this.
Because of the
Yeah.
pyroclastic
Yeah.
flows, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, should we go on?
Yeah, we got a nice picture here of a container ship.
This is an interesting picture. It's also an interesting article. This is from Clean Technica.
Container ship, how about that?
How about
Solar
that?
ammonia in a climate crisis. Almost certainly the most affordable of all low carbon shipping fuels. Now this is something new. Not very long ago, nobody was looking at ammonia as a fuel.
Actually, we talked about it a couple
We've
times.
talked about
yeah.
it because they're starting to come to the realization
Right.
that it is a good fuel and it's low carbon.
I remember that we talked about during the Second World War, I think it was in Belgium, they actually used ammonia on buses because the Germans wouldn't give them any gasoline. And they converted the engines to run, because ammonia burns. We're not talking about household ammonia.
Oh, no,
here.
no, no. It's not,
This is not what you
it's not that.
buy at the store.
It's the refrigerant that you find in older refrigerators.
Right, and it's a different chemical. The stuff you get in the store is a solution of ammonium hydroxide
And water.
and water, right? And it's mostly water. Okay, shipping has a relatively small portion of total greenhouse gas emissions, but it will be hard to eliminate because large ships have long lifetimes and need a high specific energy storage medium. Green ammonia may be a fuel for that job.
Green ammonia is simply ammonia that's been made in a green manner.
Yes.
Okay.
The hydrogen has been made by hydrolysis of water from wind power, solar
everything,
power.
The whole line in a row,
Yeah.
everything is renewable, everything is green.
Right, and the hydrogen is used to make ammonia using the same kind of fuel, and then it goes into a ship, and there are a bunch of different ways it could be used in the ship. Some of which
Well,
I think
they've
are better
thought
than
of
others.
using batteries for these ships, but they don't have enough capacity.
Right.
Okay, not enough energy density. So they look at biofuels and they look at green ammonia
Right.
as better alternatives.
Well, I think the best thing to do, is avoid combustion. And
If you can,
if
because
you
anything
can.
you burn has side effects.
Yeah, but in these things, you could use ammonia with fuel cells to produce electricity.
Well, the best solar ammonia synthesis installations today occupy about 2.5 to 5% of the area that biofuels do.
Ah,
Uh-huh.
okay.
In 2019, worldwide biofuel production only accounts for about half of global shipping energy demand.
Okay, we are up to an article
We got
from
something here.
PV
Looks
Magazine.
looks like power lines.
Those
to
are
me.
power lines at Grand Coulee Dam. They could have been power lines
Pretty
from
hefty
anywhere.
power lines, too.
Yes, you can. How do you tell, Tom?
You count the number of wires.
Okay, I was going to say you can tell that these are pretty heavy wires because of the size of the
Size of the towers.
the size of the towers, but also the insulators.
2 3-phase circuits on each tower.
You see, Tom knows about things that I don't know about, so that's
This is moving a lot of power with this
Yeah.
in that picture there.
What do you got for a title?
Well, that's Grand Coulee Dam. You would expect it.
Yes, absolutely. What do you got for a title?
Grid
for the article?
stability and 100% renewables.
Now, this is one of the interesting articles.
Well, I'm gonna talk about grid stability because I didn't even know what it was.
Oh, okay. Research by Stanford University's Mark Jacobson, who we have had word about on this show many times,
Yeah.
addresses doubts about grid stability in a world powered 100% by renewable energy. The study models 100% wind, water, and solar powered grids in the United States, and I should add with battery backup, finding no risk of blackouts in any region. It also sees broad benefits in cost reduction, job creation, and land use. And that no risk of blackouts, I think, doesn't mean absolutely no risk, because you can have a blackout because the transmission lines go
yeah.
down.
But it greatly reduces the risk.
Right.
The risk from overuse of power and stuff like that.
And we can have I remember when in one system the cost of electricity, spot cost of electricity, went from like $65 or $70 per megawatt hour up to above $2,000 per megawatt hour
happen.
in like 1 minute.
Yeah. Well, stability, grid stability. I said I had a note about that. Electricity cannot be stored in a transmission grid.
Yeah.
The grid itself can't store electricity.
Yeah.
Okay, so the amount of electricity fed in must always be the same as the amount of energy fed out.
It's a whole
Duh.
big, long known problem about.
And if they don't match, then the cycles per second changes. And that could be hairy.
And that can be hairy. And if they don't match very badly, you're going to fry something.
Oh, yeah. Well, the people who stabilize the grid, the people who worry about the grid, make sure that there is the same number of cycles every day.
Yes.
In a 24-hour period, it's always the same.
Always the same.
Even though, maybe you got 60 cycles at 10 o'clock, you got 62 at 11, you got 58 at 12. Then the course of a day, it all balances out.
It all balances out.
And it has to, because machinery follows 60 cycles in many cases. Clocks, for example, but a lot of machines.
Modern clocks don't, but the old clocks.
They use 60 cycles to run the clock.
I had a clock once that
I did too.
Wouldn't start unless you gave a little thing on the back a spin. And I actually started it in the wrong direction. And it ran backwards. It was quite fun.
Well, blackouts caused by extreme weather in California and Texas were blamed on renewables.
Yep.
Despite analysis showing renewables were not more vulnerable than fossil fuels.
Yep.
I think we're talking about a little bit of people trying to influence fossil fuel companies and stuff like that.
The experience in Germany was, as they added more and more renewable energy, the grid became more and more stable. And they were starting with the most stable grid in Europe. So
The Germans have it, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Should we go on?
Well, 100% renewable powered grids would result in a 63% reduction in energy costs in the United States.
Okay.
And 67% reduction in required land use.
How about that?
How about that? So let's move along, because we're coming up to, are you ready for this, folks? Friday.
Okay, this is the BBC.
Very funny looking trees here.
Those are what are in the United States called Baobab trees, although I first came across them in conversation when I was living in England, and so I know them as Baobab trees.
Yeah, I would call them Baobab. They're baobabs, huh?
Baobab in the United States.
Look at those trees. They're pretty old trees that you're looking at there. And they have a very small amount of growth at the top. And you look at those trunks, they're pretty thick.
They're pretty thick.
These trees are pretty old. And they store water, by the way, in a trunk.
Okay. This is from the BBC. What do you have for a title?
Madagascar food crisis. Quote, how a woman saved her village from starvation.
This, I think, is an article that everybody should read.
This is a good article.
This is a good article.
It's encouraging.
People are starving in a drought in southern Madagascar, but those who live in one village have enough food. One woman, with the help of a local charity called the Agroecological Center of the South, has been teaching about farming techniques to use in the drought. They've got enough food because they're growing things differently than they had in the past, and now a whole bunch of people from other villages are coming to find out.
Well, she knows what she's doing and she's teaching it.
Yeah.
Her name is Lo Araro.
Okay.
Okay, she's a singer.
Okay.
She's a teacher and a community leader. And she's teaching about drought-resistant crops and techniques to revitalize the soil in 14 other villages.
Yeah.
So she's pretty active.
Well, there's a picture of her with her husband in this article.
In this article.
And
there
she
is.
looks
I don't
like
have a copy
she's
of it.
not a very big woman.
No, she's little. She's a little tiny lady.
Yeah. A little tiny lady.
Over the
Okay.
past 7 years, Arano and the Agro-Ecological Center that she talks about have introduced grains like millet and sorghum and local legume varieties which grow well in the sandy conditions and improve the soil's fertility.
Right.
So she's doing relatively simple things.
And they say the people in this village get 3 meals a day, and the little children have full tummies.
For a change.
For a change, yeah.
This is true. I mean, you know, 3 meals a day doesn't sound like much to me, but to some of these people, this is big time.
Well, I mean, some people are having real serious
Oh, yeah.
problems. Okay, we should go on.
Well, we get a nice picture here of a map of
We have
the
a map of the
United
United States, and this is an article from Clean Technica.
Well, they're supporting EV charging along major U.S. travel corridors, and those are the ones in blue.
Yeah.
Those are the major, well, the ones in blue are where the charging stations are, but you can see with the highways, those are major travel corridors.
Right. What do you got for a title?
52 utility companies plus the TVA form an EV charging coalition.
According to the Edison Electric Institute, 51 investor-owned utilities, 1 electric co-op, and the TVA have banded together to form the National Electric Highway Association, whose goal is to provide EV fast charging points along major U.S. travel corridors by the end of 2023. Now, we're going to get back to these EVs before we're done.
We will. We're going to be doing let me mention something from the article.
Okay.
Some things have to change.
I guess.
There are different plugs on the end of different charging cables.
Yes.
It's absurd. Many charging networks require drivers to set up an account in advance. Well, that's going to change. Tesla has streamlined the process. Just plug in at a supercharger station and your electricity is automatically billed to your Tesla account. They know
Although
what they're
you can
doing.
plug in a Tesla at other places.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But if you plug into a Tesla, you don't
Which you
pay
can
cash.
only do if you
If you've
have
got
a Tesla.
Right.
Yeah.
What America needs, and this is true, is a unified charging strategy that takes the guesswork out of driving electric.
Right.
And
Okay.
here's another picture of a car.
Of a car, and this
let's
is
get that
also from
picture
Clean
up there.
Technica.
And that's a Kia
That
EV6.
is a Kia EV6.
And you can see by the fact that it doesn't have a grill that there's something unusual about this. And there is an
Gonna
air
be more
scoop on the
common.
bottom which cools the battery.
Yeah.
Hyundai Ioniq 5 and Kia EV6 both get 300-mile plus EPA range rating.
The EPA released its range ratings for all 3 versions of the Hyundai Ioniq and the Kia 5 and the Kia EV6. Both cars are expected to go on sale in the U.S. soon, but final pricing details are pending. Long-range, single-motor, rear-wheel drive units of both models have range ratings of over 300 miles.
Which takes a lot of the, how would you say it, the
Anxiety?
anxiety. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's exactly the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
Well, Hyundai's and Kia's numbers compare favorably with the Tesla Model Y
Right.
and the Ford Mustang Mach E5. However, Volkswagen has yet no versions that can crack the 300-mile barrier. That will change.
Yeah, it will change. We are
Let's
up
move up to Saturday.
Saturday.
We got another crazy.
And Saturday, I
this
think,
is a crazy
is
picture. It's not
the 11th.
skyscrapers, folks.
Yeah, it's not exactly. This is Saturday the 11th, and we have...
That's a hydrogen supply system in Cologne, Germany. That's what they tell me it is.
Yeah, and this is from PV Magazine.
Electrolyzer ramping up from 0 to 50,000 amperes in less than 10 seconds.
This means that you can start with a frozen turkey and have it vaporized in 10 seconds.
Well, they're talking about a load here. It's not generating 50,000 amperes.
No, but
it's
you know,
using 50,000 amperes.
I found out, and it doesn't say in the article. It doesn't say how many watts this is. So it doesn't tell you what voltage it's at. So I looked it up, and I found that this was 100 megawatts that they're using.
That's what you say.
Yeah.
And
Hydrogen.
basically, this is a load.
Yeah, this is a load. This is a load, and we can talk about in
It's a
a second.
variable load, basically.
It is. Hydrogen Optimized, based in Toronto, said it had demonstrated that its rugged cell high current unipolar electrolysis system could ramp up from 0 to 50,000 amperes in less than 10 seconds. This can be used to stabilize electrical grids and optimize renewable grid capacity. Now, and this is from PV Magazine, I don't know if I mentioned that. When the Vermont Yankee plant was opened,
Yeah.
there were people in the industry who knew that plant could produce. It was bigger than
And then it was starting out to be. It had more capacity.
It had more capacity than the grid would be able to take at some point.
Yeah, so they didn't give it.
So what they did was they built the Northfield Mountain pumped storage system just down the river in order to take up that extra.
Exactly.
Which meant that they could take up the extra at a low price, and then they could dump it back on the grid when the price went up.
Higher.
This thing would be doing the same
economics.
thing. Except that pumped
Buy
storage.
low, sell high.
That's right. Pumped storage can only be done in some places. Can't be done everywhere.
Well, you've got to have a difference of elevation.
And you've got to have a supply of water.
Well, yeah.
You're not going to do this.
You're not going to bring it in buckets.
Yeah, that's right. You're not going to do this in the middle of the Sahara Desert, at least not today.
Well, the electrolyzer can be used to optimize energy recovery from intermittent renewable power sources,
How about that?
such as wind and solar.
Yep. So, you want to go on?
Yeah, let's move on here. We got
I should point one other thing out. Can you want to put that up again? The as I understand it, and I could be wrong.
Now, what do you want to?
I want the picture up.
Oh,
Yeah.
duh.
What's on the right there is
Those
the
are
electrolyzers. The actual electrolyzers, and what's on the left, those white towers, is bottles to store hydrogen.
Storage,
Yeah. Okay. So we'll go on.
That's interesting because pretty much anybody that's done high school chemistry has done electrolysis.
Yes, but not everybody has done high school
No,
chemistry.
but that's true. But if you've done high school chemistry, I think it's the law. You got to do electrolysis.
Yeah, I think it is, and in some cases,
And then after you do it, the professor's got to put the two together so that they go pop.
which they do very nicely. They make a very nice pop.
Very nice pop.
Yeah.
Well, let's look at
This is
nice
a
turbine
Siemens
here.
Gamesa turbine.
Hey, you're ahead of me here.
Yes, I am.
It's a prototype 14 megawatt wind turbine, which
This is a big wind
as
turbine.
big as they can be. these days.
That one wind turbine would probably supply Brattleboro with all of its electricity.
Oh, certainly it would.
But you're not going to build it here because
If you look at that, what do they call it in the back there?
the nacelle.
The nacelle. That's probably about as big enough to hold 3 buses.
Yeah, this is from Renews.
Siemens Gamesa, 14 megawatt prototype delivers the first power. Now, Siemens Gamesa is a division of Siemens or an offshoot of
Yeah,
Siemens.
it was.
This is what they do.
Yeah, this is a Siemens wind turbine division, which
Correct.
which got united with the Gamesa.
Right, exactly.
Because they were making different models. The models were different sizes.
Okay,
So
and they got together.
thought,
and
yeah, absolutely. They were both making good stuff. Siemens Gamesa prototype 14-222DD offshore wind turbine was started producing electricity at the test site at Østereld in Denmark. The turbine has a rotor diameter of 222 meters.
That's about 700 feet. A
Which
little
is,
bit more than
this
700.
is longer than 2 football fields
Exactly.
with end
With the end zones.
end to end. Features the company's new B108 blades. Those are 108 meters, which means they are longer than a football field. Orders for the turbine have already been placed. So they can...
Makes me ask, is there a limit to how big these things can be?
I think there is, and I think I read how big it was, but it's big.
Well, the article, unfortunately, doesn't say much.
Yeah, well...
It describes the event as amazing milestone
Yes.
and an important step towards a greener future, and that's it.
That's
all they
basically
say.
it. This is one thing about Renews.
They
Renews
don't
has
tell you too
two
much.
types of articles, one of which is free and the other is behind a paywall.
Aha.
And their articles that are free are very short articles.
This one was about as short as I've ever seen.
However, they do tell you things that sometimes don't appear elsewhere. So anyway, I'm gonna move us along. We're a little bit
We have
behind
a nice
schedule
picture
here.
here of Omaha coming.
We have a picture of Omaha and an item from Clean Technica.
Well, Omaha has nearly 500,000 inhabitants. You don't think of Omaha as being much of a town, but that's a pretty nice downtown.
It looks like it, yeah. What do you got for a title, Tom?
Nebraska just voted to go 100% clean electricity.
Nebraska is the 20th state to commit to 100% clean electricity by 2050. The Nebraska Public Power District approved net zero carbon goal, joining the Omaha Public Power District and the Lincoln Electric System. The NPPD Board of Directors voted 9-2 to adopt a net zero policy.
Well, in Nebraska, the NPPD they control the net. It's
Yeah.
a big outfit.
Yeah.
It's a publicly owned utility. It's a political subdivision of the state.
Okay,
Okay.
yeah,
And it serves 46 municipalities,
okay.
24 public power districts, and 80 Nebraska communities. So, this is not a little utility like we got in northern Vermont.
Well, it's more like ISO New England.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Very much so.
We should move on, Tom. I think we're behind schedule here.
Well, we're coming up to Sunday here.
We are at
And we got
Sunday.
a funny picture here of, that's not Rudolph because he's got a red nose.
I was going to say, yeah, I agree. I think his name is,
What's the difference between a reindeer and a caribou?
I don't know. Well,
The reindeer lives in Europe and the caribou lives in the United States.
okay.
That's
And
it.
there's another thing too, and that is the reindeer is used to tow these things, and the caribou is not.
Well, they have domesticated the reindeer. They
Yeah.
use it as a beast of burden, and
Yeah.
the caribou still runs wild.
Yeah, you could do that to a caribou,
Oh,
probably.
yeah, it's the same animal.
Yeah. Okay, this is from CNN.
A white Christmas is less likely for many. The Grinch to blame is climate change.
Meteorologists referring to normal weather, the normal in quotes, are mainly referring to a 3-decade data set updated every 10 years. The current data set covers 1991 to 2020, and it's generally milder and less snowy due to the climate crisis. For many people, a white Christmas is less likely.
A lot of maps in this article. If you like maps, this is interesting.
I always loved maps.
This week, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration used that data to update the chances for at least 1 inch of snow on the ground on Christmas Day.
Okay?
The highest chances for that to happen is parts of North Dakota, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. Well, along with, and this is interesting, upstate New York and interior New England. So we may have a white Christmas here.
We might. I don't know. This year has been so bizarre in terms of weather.
A
And,
Christmas with no snow is still Christmas.
I think that's true. I think that's true.
Around 1940, when Irving Berlin originally wrote the song White Christmas, it had been a decade since there had been snow on Christmas in New York City.
Oh, really?
And there's only been 4 white Christmases in New York since 1970.
Really?
Yeah. Since 2009, the city has had no snow on the ground.
Yeah. And who would have thought that?
That's a new city in Florida called New York.
Who would have thought that Irving Berlin would be the
What do you think?
Irving would be the creator of a Christmas
Classic.
tradition? Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I'll bet you that if you
And
asked
you got to
him,
think of Bing Crosby singing it.
yeah, I'll bet you that if you asked Irving Berlin whether he thought he would do that when he was 17 years old, he would have said no way.
No way. Why would I do that? I'm Jewish.
But there you go. You know, we live in a land where people can appreciate each other's beliefs. Here
got
we
some
have
nice
a picture
pictures of some grapes.
grapes on a vine. Grapevines are really extraordinary things. And okay, this is from the Hill. What do we have here?
How the climate crisis is crushing the wine business. Instead
Uh-oh.
of crushing grapes, they're crushing the whole business.
A changing climate is changing the wine industry as we know it. And for some producers who have noticed changes to weather since the 1990s, that change is not all that good. This is somebody who's stuck on the word change.
Well, some of the places in California that grow wine grapes are finding it very difficult to grow grapes this year.
Yeah, well, I mean, you've got fires burning the fields down, the
having a lot of trouble.
vineyards. You've got drought. There's not enough water even to irrigate because of the rivers.
These things are all piling up.
They're piling up. The wine grapes usually need a special set of weather conditions to ripen properly, and climate change is making that hard.
Well, what we're talking about here is hotter summers,
Yeah.
warmer winters,
Yeah.
and severe storms. They're all hurting
Yeah.
this agricultural business.
And if they aren't in drought, they're in flood.
Flood, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Stop burning things, guys.
Our next picture is
Oh, this is nice. I like this one.
This picture, by the way, is a power station that happens to
That's
be
real.
in Spain. It is a real
I think that's real.
thing. I think that might be the Pyrenees in the background, but
I think it's got to be. What else is in Spain? It's
Well,
the
they
border
have-
between
they have-
France and Spain.
yeah, they have mountains in various
They're not.
places.
They're not snow covered.
I don't think so.
They're smaller
I
mountains.
feel pretty sure. I did not look up where that was, and this item is from CVBJ, and I'm not
Whatever
sure
that
about that is. Yeah.
Well, renewables already generate almost 50% of electricity, but electricity remains at record prices. That doesn't make sense.
Well, it doesn't
It
until
does,
you
but it
throw
doesn't,
something
yeah.
into the.
Something's going on.
According to Red Electrica de España,
It's probably supposed to be España.
I don't think so. I think
You
that
don't think so?
I looked it up, and that was the actual.
España. You've got to pronounce
España.
both ways.
Yeah. Renewables, including hydro, wind, and solar energy, have generated 48.7% of electricity in Spain this year, more than double the 22.1% produced last year, produced by nuclear. I'm sorry. The high cost of natural gas kept electricity prices high. And that is a function.
That's going on. Something's going on there.
Well, it's because Russia is not giving the Europeans all the gas they need, so the
Yeah,
price of
yeah.
natural gas went
So
up.
it's hydro, wind, and solar.
Yeah, yeah.
In total, Spain generated around 109 gigawatt hours from renewable sources in 2020,
Yeah.
despite the fact that the total electricity production was lower due to the coronavirus.
Right.
Okay. The analysis reflects the progressive decarbonization of the Spanish economy.
Yes.
Coal cut production by 55%. And nuclear energy also dropped a little bit, and natural gas accounts for 15%. So it's heading towards renewables, but it's doing it slowly.
Okay, we're up to Monday, December 13th
Already?
already, and we have Kwasi Kwarteng, who
We got
is.
a picture here of him. I'll try
We
to get
do
him up.
indeed. And Kwasi Kwarteng is the Energy Secretary for the UK.
And that looks like an airplane.
Does it? It
I
does.
think that's the
doesn't it?
wing of an airplane, and those are missiles on the airplane.
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
Well, the fourth Contracts for Difference auction, and that's Contracts for Difference means something.
Yeah.
For renewable energy in the UK has opened for applications.
You're reading what I'm supposed to read.
Oh, sorry
Oh.
about that. Go ahead. You
Okay.
read it.
Well, the UK has opened landmark auctions, which is what the title is. And now that Tom has,
I spoiled it.
yeah, you introduced the spoiler there. I'll just pick up from where you left off. The Energy Department put 285 million pounds up to support projects. It's not terribly clear in this article what that 285 million pounds is, but I believe it is the annual support amount. So it's a lot of money. The lion's share, 200 million, is available for offshore wind. The UK hopes to secure 12 gigawatts of new capacity through the round.
Well, this is an auction for Contracts for Difference, which is a weird thing.
Yeah.
It's a financial instrument that pays the difference in the price between the opening and closing trades.
Yes.
They're not allowed in the United States, by the way.
They're not allowed.
No. But
Well,
I mean,
we have-
these guys will bet on anything.
Americans will bet on anything.
Seventy-
I think it was Mark Twain described a couple of guys. It might have been in Life on the Mississippi, and the two guys were betting on, I forget which fruit the fly would land on.
Uh-huh.
You know, I mean, okay. Okay.
I'm just trying to see if there's anything worth saying in my notes.
Probably not.
Well, there's more than 23 gigawatts of renewables are competing in this auction here,
Yeah.
including over 16 gigawatts of wind. So
Wow.
there's also been a strengthening of the supply chain process, which is significant. I mean, we're seeing that happening right now. They're looking about putting up turbines in the Atlantic
Right.
Ocean there,
Right.
and they're trying to figure out where to put up the supply houses.
Right.
There's one big one going in New Jersey, another big one going
Yes,
in Staten
yes.
Island. We've talked about it.
We have indeed. Okay.
Let's move
our
along here.
next-
We got a bunch of tornadoes here, and this is scary.
This is the path
This
of
is
one
scary.
supercell, and it might actually have been one tornado.
Well, it could be one tornado big going bing, 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 bing.
Yeah. And this is from CNN, and what do you have for title?
More than 100 feared dead after tornadoes tear through several states.
More than 100 people are feared dead after a series of tornadoes ripped through several states in the Midwest and South and transformed homes and businesses into piles of rubble. Late Friday and into Saturday, it was the deadliest tornado event in the history of Kentucky. The thing that is troublesome about this is that it happened in December. And the
It's not supposed to happen
you're
in
not
December.
supposed to have these things. Well, I mean, tornadoes come any month, but the tornado season is in spring and very early summer. And no, this
And I
is
was reading about these. These things came up without any warning.
yeah.
I mean, there's somebody sitting in their office, the next thing you know, the office has collapsed.
Wow. Well, we have a picture coming up next of the collapse. Maybe we should just go straight to
Well,
that.
let's see if we can do that.
Well, I've got it up. You don't
think
have
you
to
got
go.
it up.
You don't have to go anywhere with that one mouse. Okay.
At least 50 tornadoes were reported across 8 states. By the way, Vermont is supposedly the only state that's never had a tornado.
I find that hard to imagine.
I do too, because there's a little spot north of Wardsboro where there's a swath through the woods. It looks like it was a short tornado, but
Yeah, and you know, when I was living in New Hampshire, there was a tornado that came down less than 10 miles from where I lived. Brattleboro was only 7 miles from where I lived. So, I don't know, and we keep hearing about tornadoes in Massachusetts and so forth. Okay,
well, across the region, destroyed buildings, downed power lines, and wrecked vehicles lined the streets in hard-hit areas. And we're going to take a quick look at that,
yeah,
making it tougher for rescuers trying to reach communities left with no working phone or power lines. More than 50,000 customers in Kentucky were without power as of Sunday.
no phone lines is a little
No
bit,
phone lines, no nothing.
That's
yeah.
a little unusual. Okay, our next item
that
is from
picture
CNN, and the picture
that's
is
a very
up.
interesting picture.
That is an Amazon warehouse.
It was in Amazon
That was a warehouse, and people died in that warehouse, and other people were trapped, and they were able to call out and say, "We're here, please come get us," talking into their cell phones.
Well, the article goes on to say that powerful storms are the new normal
Yes.
in an era of climate change, and that's FEMA saying this.
Yes, powerful storms like the ones that tore through the parts of central U.S. this weekend are the new normal in quotes. In an era of climate change, Deanne Criswell, the FEMA administrator, said, FEMA is the Federal Emergency Management Agency? I forget.
I don't know, it's either agency, well, they say FEMA administration.
Yeah.
The FEMA administrator, so it must be administration.
Yeah. Connecting increasing tornado activity to climate change is not easy, however. It's actually fairly easy with hurricanes. The mechanisms there are pretty well known. I could describe them to people who want to know. But connecting increasing tornado activity is obscured by the fact that up until recently, we didn't catch all of the tornadoes. We only caught some of them.
Well, this lady Criswell says that the severity, duration, and magnitude of storms this late in the year is unprecedented.
Yes.
The effects we are seeing of climate change are the crisis of our generation.
Well, I have no doubt of that.
I think that's valid.
Yeah.
Well, La
Okay.
Nina seasons, which we're in now, tend to have increased tornado activity in the U.S., and the U.S. is currently experiencing La Nina, which
Yes.
is expected to last into the spring.
Yes. Okay, we're up to Tuesday,
Nice picture of Thwaites
December
Glacier.
14th, and we have the Thwaites Glacier.
Well, the only person I ever knew with that name pronounced it Thwaite.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, this is from the BBC.
Well, that's Thwaites Glacier or Thwaites Glacier. You pays your money and you takes your church.
Okay. And what do you have for a title for the...
Antarctic glacier headed for dramatic changes.
Scientists warn of dramatic changes at one of Antarctica's biggest glaciers, potentially within 5 to 10 years. They say a floating section of the front of Thwaites Glacier that had been relatively stable could, quote, shatter like a car windscreen, end quote. Thwaites is as big as Florida. Its outflow has doubled in the last 30 years. Now, one of the big problems here is that the thing that they're expecting to break is the plug that holds the rest of the glacier back.
Yeah.
The rest of the glacier is on land, and it will come down to the sea and raise the sea level.
Well, water-based glaciers, when they melt, don't change the level of the sea, just
yeah.
like an ice cube in a drink.
Right.
But land-based glaciers are bad news.
Yes.
And
When they come out.
the one in Greenland has never had rain on it before. We just
Yes,
did
I
this
know.
about 2 shows ago.
Yeah.
For the first time ever, there's been rain on top of this
Yes.
mountain.
Yes.
This is happening because the ocean water is getting under the glacier. That's what's going on here.
Yep.
The warm water is thinning and weakening the ice, making it run faster and pushing back the zone where the main glacier body becomes buoyant. This eastern shelf is likely to become uncoupled from the ridge in the next few years, which will destabilize it. So not good things are happening down
Well,
there.
that happens. Not good things do happen. It's one of the reasons we have this
It's
show.
an interesting picture coming up here. I
Yes.
guess you're going to pull it up, and
There you go.
I'll pull it up. We
This
both
is
pulled it up.
from Clean Technica. And
Well, you can, if you look closely, those white things are the sails,
yes.
and they don't rotate in this particular case. Sometimes they do, but these don't.
No, they're actual sails, and they're more like airplanes.
They look like
wings.
airplane wings. Yep.
Now, that ship is not really intended to have 3 of them. I believe it's intended to have 6 or 8 of
8.
them.
I've seen 8 mentioned in the article.
Yes, 8 was mentioned in the article.
And for what it's worth, that ship is heading toward the top of the picture.
Either that or it has a reverse wake.
But it's getting pushed sideways, which it has to steer against. And it's getting pushed sideways twice as much as it is getting pushed forwards.
Yeah, and I'm curious about this because the wake at the end of the ship, at the stern,
Looks like there's propellers
looks
there,
like
doesn't it?
there's propellers there. Okay, this is from Clean Technica. What do you have for a title?
Cargo ships reclaim wind power with high-tech rigid sails.
The modern shipping industry is taking steps to be powered by wind again, though with a high-tech twist. Last week's French startup Zephyr and Boré got a validation for a container ship decked out with 8 rigid sails engineered by the firm Computed Wing Sails.
Clever name.
Yeah, clever name. And this is something that they're planning on building fairly sizable container ships that are just pushed by the wind.
Well, it's almost a duh. Here are these ships making long trips over the ocean,
Yes,
and they're using diesel.
yes. Well, it's
And what they're
expensive.
saying here is they could use the wind.
They could use the wind.
This ship is no demonstration scale venture, the one they're talking about.
Yeah.
Full-size 600-foot cargo ship with a capacity of 1,800 TEUs, whatever the heck they are.
Their container
They
units.
refer to the number of containers it can carry.
Yeah.
Today's largest cargo ships can top 20,000 TEUs.
Well, the biggest container ships are unbelievably big.
They're large, but
Yeah.
20,000 containers on the damn things, they gotta be big.
Yes, they've got to be big.
The ship is not powered exclusively by wind, but using wind power to reduce emissions from marine fuel can make a significant difference. Okay,
Right.
the company's anticipating savings up to 25%.
There you go. Well, it says, and you just said, it's not powered completely by the wind, which would explain why we see a wake in the back that looks like it's from propellers.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
it could still be powered partially by the wind
Partly.
in that picture.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's partly.
The rigid
Okay.
wind power harvester is what they're calling the sail. Is a thick, asymmetrical sail that resembles the wing of a glider.
Yeah.
And you can see that in the picture.
Yeah, you can.
Depending on wind conditions, it can fold down to hold a position half its height for optimal efficiency.
Right.
A Japanese firm introduced a rigid sail that doubled as a solar energy harvester, which is, again, a duh.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's move along.
Our
We've got
next
something else
item is
coming up.
about, we said that we were going to get back to EV charges, and that's where we
Yeah,
are.
We got a picture here.
We have a picture here of an EV charger.
Looks like a soda machine.
It looks like a soda machine. This is from Clean Technica.
Well, let's see what it says. Biden plan to add 500,000 electric car chargers is light on the details.
Well, Vice President Kamala Harris announced that the administration is planning to add 500,000 EV chargers from sea to shining sea. I don't see quotes about that, but I'm sure that is a quote. Harris offered few details about the program, but she said many of those chargers would be designated for underserved and rural communities.
Well, part of the problem is if you got a place where you store your car, you got a garage or something like that, you got no problem. But if you got to keep your car on the street, where are you going to plug it in?
Yeah, and they're, underserved communities. That could be an inner city community that.
They don't have to be inner city communities.
No, they don't have to
but
be.
They can be.
But if you get into,
Brattleboro, a lot of people park on the street.
if you get into places like rural communities in South Dakota or whatever, you have to be near one of these chargers if you're going to have an electric vehicle.
Well, the article comes up with a pretty good idea, I think.
Yeah.
A solution could be having charging cables installed at streetlights. The wiring's there already.
Yes, that's
That
true.
makes a little bit of sense.
It does. Okay, should we go on?
Well, Wednesday's what's coming up.
Wednesday,
There's a little
which is
picture there of
the 15th.
Utrecht, or is it Utrecht?
Utrecht, which is a city in the
Dutch city.
Netherlands. And
Right smack dab in the middle of Holland.
yeah, how did they do that? Who'd have thought that they could fit a city in Holland? Okay.
Utrecht wants to be the first city to use its electric car fleet as a giant battery, huh?
Huh? This
is good too.
Yeah, this is from an organization called Fast Company. I don't know much about it. Utrecht aims to be the first city in the world to be fully bidirectional, using EV batteries to help solve the challenge of intermittent renewable power. It is not necessary to buy batteries. It's not necessary for the city to buy batteries,
Right.
or the local utility, because
No, the
as
guy who
people-
owns the car buys the battery.
yeah.
Duh.
As people shift to EVs, the cars will have batteries and they can be used as grid
Well,
infrastructure.
this is an interesting use of an existing resource.
Yes.
On a sunroof over a parking lot next to an office building in the Dutch city of Utrecht, there are now more than 2,000 solar panels. Underneath, there are 250 bidirectional chargers for electric cars. That's a new concept to me. Bidirectional chargers. They charge and discharge.
Yeah.
So that in the future, the batteries in the cars parked in a lot can help store solar power for the grid.
Which means that
That makes
the
sense.
utility will take, if you have an EV, the utility will take power from your car,
Yeah.
but they have to pay you for it.
Oh, absolutely.
And then they have to put it back.
And you have to pay for that.
Yeah, and they're going to have to do this in a way that is profitable to you.
Not profitable for everybody.
Probably for everybody. The only thing is that they have to have a way for you to tell them, don't take my power because I'm going to be going out on a ride,
I'm sure somebody thought of that.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
building batteries for storage is expensive.
Yes.
So that's what they're trying to deal with. They're trying
Although
to
the
deal with
price
not
is-
having to buy batteries.
The price is
They're
going
there.
down. Yeah.
Let's use them.
The price is
As more
going down
people
fast.
shift to EVs, the cars can double as a grid infrastructure.
Yeah.
The solar panels send electricity to the office building and to the cars where the sun is when the sun is shining. When it's dark, the car's batteries reverse, sending energy into the building.
Right.
Current electric cars aren't capable of sending power back to the grid. So the system won't work until the technology is updated.
Some cars, I think, are already starting to do that.
I think they said that. Some cars already can
Yeah.
do it.
Okay, our next item is from
Oh, we got the
CNN.
Northern Lights
We
here.
have a picture of northern lights here. By the way, the northern lights are the aurora borealis. There is an aurora australis, which is the
Southern Lights.
southern lights, and the two are absolutely identical except for one thing, which is the southern lights are exactly like the northern lights except they're upside down. But
Who'd have thunk?
Who'd have thunk? But you won't notice if you're there because you're going to be upside down too.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay, what do you got for a title here?
The Arctic fails its annual health check as global warming brings more ills to the Arctic
This
region.
is sad. This is from CNN. The Arctic report card, which serves as an annual physical for the Arctic, found this vast and significant biome is changing profoundly. It continues to warm twice as fast as the rest of the Earth and is rapidly losing its ice cover, visibly changing in just one decade.
I'm going to look up bring the picture back. If you look carefully there, those are icebergs. Look like mountains to me. They're icebergs from the Kujalleq Glacier,
Okay.
for what it's worth.
Yeah.
From extreme melting events to an influx of beaver colonies in Alaska,
Yeah.
and rain falling at the summit of Greenland, which we've already talked about on this show,
Right.
for the first time in record, the Arctic region showed clear symptoms of an ailing planet.
Yeah. It's very sad, and we have to reverse that in order to get a real grasp on climate change.
Well, the Arctic's thawing permafrost, and we've talked about this, is releasing more greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, further exacerbating the warming of the entire planet. So as the permafrost thaws, the situation gets worse. These cascading disruptions in one place are not isolated and influence other parts of the system. Well, if they're raising the greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, they're influencing the entire world.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. They are. Okay, our next item is going to be the last for the day.
Is this the last one, huh? Let's get
The
a picture
last
up
one.
here.
Those power lines, by the way, I don't know where they are. I don't think they're in Vermont. I don't think
They
they're
don't tell us where. They
don't tell us
refer
where.
to New York State, but that isn't necessarily New York State. Could
No.
be.
I think that's actually someplace in Europe.
Grid software solution could more than double network capacity for renewables with no new infrastructure.
This is
It
from-
almost contradicts what we said earlier about the grid can't store.
It sure does.
It's not really the grid that's storing it.
Yes. PV Magazine is the source of this. Smarter Grid Solutions pilot project in New York State was a resounding success. The National Renewable Energy Laboratory predicted it could unlock large amounts of network capacity with no need for new power lines. Now, tell me the truth, Tom. Did you understand this story and how they're doing this?
Not really.
I
A
couldn't.
software system designed to free up electric grid capacity in a network,
Yeah.
which they don't really tell us about.
They don't
okay,
tell us how it's done.
was able to accommodate almost 6 times the solar generation capacity than planners had anticipated.
Yes.
Well, obviously, they're looking at who's generating electricity. Well, they know that anyhow. Okay, and they're saying, do we really need that? You know, and they're shifting it around.
Well, I'll
So
tell
the
you.
grid isn't storing the energy, but it's computers that is.
The fact that if this article had appeared in a publication that I didn't recognize, it appeared in PV Magazine.
Yeah, that's one extra.
And if it had been somebody whose name I didn't recognize other than the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, I would have said, this is a scam. This is just some con artist talking.
Well, it's not. And this is what the little I do explain. It works in the same way as traffic lights on public roads. Okay? You can avoid building more roads and still achieve the maximum throughput of vehicles if you regulate the flow of traffic.
Well, I'm going to have
That's
to
what
see
they
it
say
work.
they're doing.
I'm going to have to see it work and
Well, the
understand
software monitors the flow of power in the grid and compares that to grid capacity.
Yeah, one of the things that I had happen, and I've had this happen a couple of times in the last few years, I was contacted by a guy who wanted to publish an article in Green Energy Times, as a matter of fact, about an invention of his. And the invention was a box, and he didn't describe what was going on inside the box. And that's a bad sign to begin with. But and if he described it,
Magic, a
he
magic
would have,
box.
yeah, he would have. I think he would have used words that were incomprehensible to me. But anyway, the deal on this box was you plug it into the wall,
Yeah.
and you're drawing a 110 volt AC system. Maybe it's 15 amps, which means that you could get 1,600 and some watts.
Yeah.
And the output from the box was, I think it was like 3 times as many watts.
Oh, that's pretty clever.
Yes, it's very clever. It defies physics. And
who needs physics anyhow?
I said, how does this work? And he said, it's simple. You plug it in and you get 3 times as much energy as you had in there. And, this is one of those
These
things.
get gremlins inside that are running little tiny bicycles generated.
I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
They all get scared when you plug in the electricity
Yeah.
and they see the electrons coming at them and they try to run away. But you put them on the bicycles and they make the thing go.
Yeah, that's what's going on.
This does not make sense. This particular article that we just read,
Yeah.
I don't understand it. And as long as I don't understand it, I'm not sure that I trust it.
A smarter grid solutions pilot project. Well, I don't know.
Anyway,
Free up electric grid capacity in a network. Well, people are generating electricity from whatever it is they use, and they don't want to shut it off because you shut down, say, a nuclear power plant. What's it take you, 3 days to turn it on again?
I think 3 weeks is a more...
3 weeks.
Yeah, I watch these nuclear power plants go down and come up on a daily basis.
Uh-huh.
I actually keep track of which power plants are going
Do you?
down, which ones are coming up, yeah. And if you know how to get to it, you can get there through my blog. And what I'm seeing is that sometimes it'll take 3 weeks for a plant to get back online.
Get back online.
It will not happen in 3 days. It just won't.
Just ain't going to happen.
Nope, they're too big. It can happen if a plant has an unexpected scram. So it's going along 100% and all of a sudden it shuts down because of some problem. It's possible that it can recover. When the problem is fixed, it can recover in a matter of hours.
The problem has to be fixed
Very
post-haste.
quickly. The problem is that they've got a huge boiler there. This is like a tea kettle that's the size of a house.
Yeah.
You don't
Yeah.
just light a flame under it and expect to have a cup of tea in 10 minutes. It's just not going to happen. And, when they start them up, they start with the system off, and bringing it back online puts them into a position where they have to test everything. So all of a sudden they're going through the thing and say, oh, this system isn't working. So they have to shut
Gotta
it
go
down
back
again.
down and go back.
It's
to-
very common.
Yeah.
And so it's a long drawn out. I have to say, the people who are doing these nuclear plants, to the best of their ability, they're being careful. To the best of their ability, they are doing the things that they do as scientifically and appropriately as they can.
They're doing their best.
They're doing their best
Best
work.
job.
I don't think there was a guy who got caught cheating at that.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, and he got caught after he retired. Somebody looked at the record that he had produced and said,
This doesn't look right.
"This doesn't look right." And they actually
He was fudging the books.
took him to court,
Did
and
they?
he pled guilty.
Uh-huh.
And I don't remember whether I read what his. This was recent. It was, I think, at North Anna nuclear plant. But these things do happen, and it's kind of difficult when they do. All right, we have run out of
I
time.
think we have. Well, we've talked about some pretty good
We're
stuff.
asking everybody to have a noticeably awesome week.
Awesome.
Awesome. Why don't you put that up so people can actually see it, or put us up
Why
so
don't
they
I
can
do
see it
something
behind
like
us?
that? I got to figure out which mouse I'm using.
Well, it's hard because people don't know what that. We should get a picture
there
of
we
that
go.
monitor one of these days, because it is absolutely crazy how many pictures there are on there.
I'm going to make that cursor a little bit bigger.
Yeah, they could do that.
I can't hardly see it.
Okay, why don't you put both of us up and we'll wave goodbye, and then I can.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay,
You all come back and see us now, you hear?
I repeat. Have a noticeably awesome week.